Hello and welcome to the third video in this Introduction to Neural Net series. So in this video then we're going to carry on from the last one. Funnily enough, we had the display of the background and the frames per second and time elapsed. In this one I want to get a pipe on the screen, and I want to get the pipe scrolling across the screen from right to left. As a way of introduction to all of this, because we're going to get started with the sprites now, I want to give you a little bit of explanation of how the game's set up, and I'll refer back to this as well. The game itself, we were looking at this before. We can move to this. We have our bird sprite, and we'll have a few of these pipe sprites on the screen, and they'll move around. Important thing to know is how it's set up. Each time we generate some pipes, we generate two. One will be defined as the upper, and we'll define a pipe upper variable, and one as a pipe lower. And then we'll define later on in the course a pipe max, which will be the maximum Y that the top of the pipe lower can have. And we'll also define a pipe min, which will be essentially as high as on the screen, or low in terms of Y, that the gap is allowed to go. And this is to keep then the generation of the gap within these bounds of pipe min and pipe max. The other thing we'll have as well is we'll have a gap, which will be called pipe add gap, which will be the gap between the pipes that are generated, the pairs of pipes. And another thing we'll have is a constant size of gap. So with a consistent spacing between the pipes, we'll generate between the pipe min and the pipe max here, so we've got the min and the max, we'll generate the tube somewhere randomly in this kind of range. The bird itself will be set to start at the same X and Y position each time. And now, having a little look at sprites themselves, and this applies to the pipes as much as it does the bird. And it all evolves a little bit around the getRect function that's available from an image. So you can use your sprite or your pipe or your bird or whatever. getRect gives you then a rectangle, and you can use the properties of this rectangle to set the position on the screen. The thing that's very tricky is the X and Y are always 0. They're the top left point of the sprite relative to itself. And I've listed some of the other properties here because they're the ones that we'll be using to actually move our sprites around, so our pipes and our bird. So imagine we have a bird here that is 100 by 100 wide and tall, and it's at position 100 by 150. If we used getRect on this and had a look at some of the properties, not all of them, what we would see is that left would be 100 and right would be 200, bottom would be 250 and top would be 150. And here we have the center X and the center Y. So the center Y, with the top being at 150 and the bottom being at 250, of course, will be 200, and the center X, with the left being 100 and the right being 200, would be 150. And the way we move it is increment the center X and center Y, or set the left and the bottom, or the left and the top, or something like this. So what I want to do then is get the pipe scrolling across the screen. So back into the code, I'm starting exactly from where we left off in the previous video. The only difference is I've now got a ch3 for a chapter 3. You can ignore the PyCache there. I'm going to make a new file here, save this file and call it pipe.py. And inside pipe.py we're going to make a pipe class. First thing I want to do is import Pygame random and defs, because we're going to be using some things. And now we can start making a pipe class. So when we initialize our pipe class, we're going to have the game display, because we're going to need the game display to be able to draw the pipe class. So we're going to do that inside the pipe class itself. It's X and Y position that we want to initialize it in, and also what type of pipe it is. And in fact, that reminds me, I've forgotten, I wanted to start with defs.py, in fact, and add some definitions inside here. So let's do this now. So for our pipe then, first thing is we'll have the file name, which is the .pipe.png. That's on GitHub. It's this wonderful green pipe here. And then there are 5 other definitions. The speed that the pipe's going to go across the screen, you'll see how that works. It's 70 divided by 1000. Pipe done is a 1. Pipe moving is a 0. You'll see later on why we have that. When we generate a pipe the first time, it's moving. When it's finished, it's done. And what we'll do is then remove it from a list we maintain of pipes. And then we define whether it's an upper pipe or a lower pipe, as I just showed in the sort of the schematic of the game. So now we've got defs up to date, we can go back into pipe.py, and this pipe upper or lower is what will come in as the pipe type. So now we set some properties on the class. So we'll have the game display. We're going to set a state, which at the moment is pipe moving. It'll be pipe done when it's finished moving across the screen, and also let it know what type of pipe it is. And now, just as we did inside main.py, where we load an image here, we're going to load the pipe's image as well. So I'm going to set a new image property on the pipe class, and that's going to load the pipe file name image then. Something else I'm going to maintain is a reference to the rectangle of the image, which is what I was discussing back here. And I'm going to use from this rect, using the getRect, which I've just used on the pipe, I'm going to use some of the properties of this to then move the pipe across the screen. So this is why we need a reference to the rect. And last but not least, we're going to need to set the position of the pipe. To do that, we're going to need a new function, obviously. I'm going to call that a set position. And here what we do is we take x and y coordinates as parameters, and now we use the rectangle, to set the left and set the top to whatever the x and y are as the position. So just once more going back to this diagram here, if I wanted to set it at 100 by 150, I would set the left at 100 and the top at 150. Now that that's done, we can set the position of our sprite here to whatever was given when we created our pipe. The next thing we want to do is we want to be able to move our sprite. So very similar to set position, I'm going to call this move position. In this case we have a delta, so a change in x and a change in y. And in this case I'm going to set the center values of the rect and just move them by the offset delta x or delta y. So fairly straightforward so far. We initialize some things in our pipe class, we can set the position, and we can also move our pipe class. What we also need to do is to be able to draw onto the game display. And this we've already seen when we've drawn the background image with the blit. So we use the game display reference blit, and we use our rect. You can also give this as a parameter as well in blit to say where we want to draw our own image of the pipe. Now I'd like to add in a function where we update the position of our pipe. So we'll call this update, and as of an argument here we take the delta time so we can update things. The first thing we want to know is the pipe actually moving or is it done? So if our state is equal to pipe moving, and what we're doing here, you'll notice that we've got the negative here. We want to move left across the screen, and when we do pipe speed multiplied by delta time, that of course will be positive. We'll end up going to the right. We want to go to the left, so we'll negate that, and then we'll go to the left. So we'll have our pipe speed multiplied by our delta time. We'll do this once every frame, so that'll be the time the last frame took. And of course we don't have any increment on the y, it stays exactly in the same way it was, so dy would be 0 and dx will be whatever has been calculated here. Then we want to draw ourselves on the screen. And last but not least, we need to check whether we've actually gone off the left-hand side of the screen or not. Because if we have, not now but later on, what we'll do is we'll remove ourselves from a list that the game will maintain of all the pipes. It's a waste of computation and memory to keep everything hanging around when it's no longer needed anymore. So to do that, I'm going to write a check status function. And here, very simple. So if the right hand side of our rect, so of our image, is less than 0, that means we've gone off the left hand side of the screen, we're no longer visible. We can say that our pipe is done and is ready to move. And in fact what I'll do is I'll just put a pipe moving here as well, so that we've got some idea that the pipe is moving. So that should print to the console then pipe done when the pipe has gone off the screen. And assuming I haven't made a huge amount of errors here, and I remember to add in the check status there, that's all we need to do for our pipe class. When the pipe is running, it'll only update its position if the state is pipe underscore moving. So now we can go into main.py and create ourselves a pipe. First thing to do is at the top we should import. And now inside game, just before the running, we can create ourselves a pipe. So I'll call it p is equal to So I created a new pipe for now, because later on we'll have collections of pipes because we'll have more than one on the screen. But now just for demo, send in the game display. It gets created at an x of the display width, which means the left hand side of it will be directly off the right hand side of the screen. We won't be able to see it. The pipe y I've put 300 is kind of arbitrary, and the type of the pipe is a pipe lower. Now remember, the draw of the pipe is inside the pipe class itself. So what I need to be able to do is update this pipe, and then everything should work. That's all we need to do. So hopefully, I'm saying hopefully because probably I've made spelling mistakes in here, we'll find out. We should be able to run this and see what it looks like. So there were a couple of errors there. The pipe moving was indented incorrectly, and I'd actually pasted some code in with some incorrect tabs, so I'll just try again. Okay, and you can see now that we've got the pipe scrolling across the screen. I'll just move this so we can see the console. We've got pipe moving, and hopefully when it goes off the left-hand side, we'll see pipe done. Good, okay. Okay, so we have one pipe anyway, scrolling across the screen. Now we can look at getting lots of them scrolling across the screen. So hopefully this video made some sense. Thanks so much for watching. Any questions, comments, welcome as always below the video. Otherwise, see you in the next one.